In this video, we're going to be taking a look at another real-world logo that was sent to us by one of our customers. And so I just drag and drop the JPEG from my desktop here into my CorelDRAW workspace. The first thing that we need to do is we need to set the overall width. So we're going to go to the Specialty tab and set size from the very edge of our Y to the very edge of our leaf. We want it to be about 9.5 inches wide. So go ahead and make it 9.5 inches wide. Then we'll lock our bitmap and we'll begin our work. I think to start with, let's go ahead and take care of the Y and the L because it's the two easiest parts of the design. So we're going to make those in SS10 stones. So we're going to right click, set our stone size to SS10. We're going to drop one single stone, hit the escape key to exit out of drop stone. And then we're going to go and offset this 4 stone widths wide. And let's go about, I don't know, 30 steps to the vertical. And obviously that was way more than I needed. So we'll just delete what I don't need. And then we're going to take these 4 stones and we're going to copy them up here. And then we're going to connect the dots. So select this one and shift add stones. And then once we have one line, we can just copy that over and over and over. And there you go. Then what we're going to do is select all of the stones and hit delete stone paths. Then we're going to create the top part of the Y here. So we're going to go to the stone fill tab, offset a couple of times that way, couple of times this way, offset this one this way, and this one this way. And that'll kind of mimic how this part of the Y here is a little bit thicker. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to flip this whole top part over to do the other half. But what we're going to do now is the other half isn't as thick. So we're going to delete part of it. The part that we don't need, let's just go ahead and lasso those stones away. And then here there's some overlapping stones here. So what we're going to do is back out, select the entire Y, check for overlapping stones. There's 22 of them. And then let's just take a look at this right here. We're going to select these stones and hit H because they're just a little bit off on the spacing. I see it, but you probably would not. So let's go ahead and offset it a couple of times this direction and this direction. And we'll offset this and this as well. So there we have the Y part of our design. So now we're going to take that and copy it down here and use that for the L. So we'll go ahead and do the same kind of thing. We'll offset a few times. Delete the stones we don't need at the top. Offset these stones a few times, each direction. And then we'll offset this one and this one. And that'll kind of take care of the top part of the L there. And then we'll offset this stone a couple of times. And then we'll offset these a few times. And then what I'm going to do is take this stone and drag it up here. Shift add stones over here on the stone tab. That'll create this line of stones. And then going horizontally, I'll select those stones and hit H. And that'll space all of those stones perfectly horizontally. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to go 2 stones, then 1. And then we're going to change that to an SS6 and this to an SS6. You wouldn't have to. I'm going to tuck that down there and tuck this one down here. But doing that kind of gives that curvature illusion of the L. Like I said, you may skip that if you don't want it that way. You may not. All right. And then sometimes what's fun to do when you get to this point is to peel these away, add a weed box, and sit back and marvel at your work. Now this looks weird to me. I'm going to delete that stone because I want a nice sharp point there on my Y. But now when you sit back and you look at the design, it's really coming together, and really that only took a few seconds, right? I mean, it really wasn't that big a deal. So now comes the little bit trickier part, but I think you're really going to enjoy this because there's lots of ways to accomplish a task. Our goal here is to show you a technique that requires minimal skills. It requires a bit of time and a bit of your patience, but very, very minimal skills. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by filling in this oil drop. And this is always the most challenging part. And it becomes even more challenging when you're working with only one size stone. So when we create a design, we're interested in the best looking design we could possibly produce. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab our 3-point curve tool and we're going to begin. We're just going to drag out a small segment, 3-point curve. Another small segment, 3-point curve. Another small segment, and another. So we're just kind of tracing around this bitmap, if you will. We're just manually tracing and recreating this droplet here. Go back to the beginning. So there's step one. Now, what we want to do is we want to fill this with rhinestones. And there's lots of ways to do it, but again, our focus here is to give you a technique that you can do quickly and very minimal skills. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select our outline. We're going to come to the stone fill tab. We're going to set our stones to SS10 stones because that's what we want to fill this shape with, SS10 stones. Then we're going to do island fill, but we're going to do a little bit of a trick. We're going to hold down the Alt key and it's going to offset this line, but half this distance. Then we're going to take that line and click on island fill, and you can see it offset, 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 offset. So this outside line we don't need at all. So we'll delete that one. And then the rest of these lines, we'll select them, come to the stone tab, and we'll add stones. So let's go ahead and sometimes you get that error message. You see that error message that just popped up, and that's because we have too many nodes along there. So we should be able to come back in here and let's try that again. Let's try adding stones again. It did it on that one. What's going on here? Well, I don't know really what's going to go on there. Maybe we have to do it a line at a time. There we go. That's okay too. That works for me. All right, so that's close enough for what we're wanting to do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take all of those stones that are on a path. You can see all these paths that were created, and we're going to delete the paths. We don't need those anymore. And I usually start at the tip. And the first thing we want to do is we want to select those and get rid of any overlaps. Check spacing. There's 30 overlapping. Get rid of those. Then what we're going to do is take this. We're going to make that an SS6 stone. That's the advantage of working with more than one stone size. It's really easy to make some changes here. And then we're just going to keep going. So whatever changes you think we need to make here, we're going to drop in an SS6 stone. Here, these two are too close together. Let's make those SS6 stones. And then here, we're just going to evenly space these. Come to the editing tab and use that respace tool. And keep going with that respace tool. Respace, delete. And this is what I was saying. This is the easy part of the design. Very minimal skills. Just select those stones, respace. And just keep going along that way. So we're just going to keep going here. Respace. We can add a stone if we want to try adding a stone. And you see how tight that is? So what we do in that scenario is we take one stone, we'll make it smaller, and then we can respace those again. And now we're using that small stone in the middle. Perfect. So very easy to make these changes on the fly here. So again, we'll just respace. You'll see how this will all come together here very shortly. So these you can just reposition where they need to be. These you can reposition if they need to be repositioned. And hit respace and delete. Now I'm going to stop right here because we're going to make a small change here. I want to show you what's happening here. You see down here at the bottom, there's a lot of spacing going on here with these stones. And so what I want to do here is I want to address that right now. So let's go ahead and select these stones along this whole line here. I selected one holding my shift key and clicking on the others until I'm satisfied where I want to go back to, and then we're going to hit respace. And that's going to shuffle those stones a little bit, but it's going to put them on a path, and I can add a stone or two. Let's see here. I think I'll just add one stone for that particular one. Now the next line in, I think actually, the next line in here, there's a lot of spacing going on in certain areas. So we're probably going to have to add more than one stone, but let's just try it. See what we get. So we're going to hit respace, and then we're going to add a stone. Yes, 2 stones, that's good. I'm happy with that. And then we're just going to kind of keep on going here, ring after ring after ring. Okay, you see there's big gaps there. So we're going to have to add a couple of stones. We'll hit respace again. And yes, we'll come in here, add a stone, add a stone. That's probably good. 2 stones is probably good there. And now down here, what we can do is we can just come in here, if we want to, just move a couple of stones around. We don't want to manipulate too many stones by hand, but there are times, obviously, where we're going to have to move some stones. And then see here where this is coming to a point, we're going to have to drop in an SS6 stone there. That's the best way, easiest way, quickest way to handle it. Give us the best results. We'll select those going across and we'll respace those. And that takes care of that. And we'll pull this down. Same thing, all the way across. We'll respace those going all the way across. And then down here, we'll have to do the same thing. At some point, we're going to have to make some choices if we need to drop a stone size or what have you. So let's just keep going here. That takes care of that line. And who knows, maybe some of these will kind of work themselves out. You see those are overlapping, so let's see if we can put some space in between those. Delete. And we'll move these down a little bit. And that's where things get a little bit complicated. But we can just keep going with that same technique all the way across. Respace and delete. And now I think I'll just go ahead and see what we're going to do here. Let's go ahead and delete this one. Hit our delete key. And we'll just delete a few of them here so we can see kind of what we've got going on here. So I think what I'll do here is I'll position this one and this one and this one. I think we'll go ahead and make one of these. Actually, let's make 2 of them an SS6. As a general rule, I don't know why, but I always like to do it in pairs if I can. So rather than just have one SS6, as a general rule, I put in 2. And that usually works better than a single one. Don't ask me why, because I don't know. That's just, I've done so many designs, that's just generally speaking, that's what turns out better. All right, so now we just kind of got to fill in this space as best we can. And usually that only leaves us a couple of stones here that we have to place manually to get, again, to get the best result that we can get. So we'll go ahead and drop that down to a 6. And there we go. So that is generically how we go about filling a space. And when you sit back and look at this now, let's pull this away and take a look. You can see we get a nice filled in result there. Yeah, I'm definitely happy with the way that looks. We get a nice solid fill, and of course when you put that on a shirt, it'll look great. And yeah, there's a couple of SS6 stones in there, but that gives us a better looking fill result. So now what we need to do is use pretty much that same technique for the leaf. So let's go ahead and show you how that's done. We're going to follow along that leaf here to create our outside shape. Like so. This has kind of an interesting middle portion here where it has that little bit of space. Okay, so there's our leaf. So then we're going to do just like we did with our teardrop. Remember what we did? We came to the stone fill tab. We're going to set our stones to SS10s because we predominantly want to fill a leaf with SS10s. We're only going to use 6s as needed. So the next step then is to offset a half amount. We're going to get rid of this outside line because we don't need it anymore. And then we're going to click on Island Fill. And that's going to give us our offset, 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 offset. And then we're going to select all of those. And we're going to add stones. So now we've added stones to all of that. And then the next thing, now this initial result, a lot of people say, wow, that's a crappy result. And yes, that is not the obviously the best result for our fill, but it is what it is, so we're going to work with it. So let's go ahead and delete our stone paths. And then what I do, we'll just start here by just connecting. You'll see how that'll connect there. And then we can just come in here and take care of all of our fill issues, if you will. So what we're going to do here is this one here. Let's drop it down to a 6. Let's drop it down to a 6 as well. And I tell you what, before we even get too far along, let's check spacing, get rid of all of our overlapping stones. That'll take care of those. And then we can just kind of fill in the rest of it. So maybe what we'll do here, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and make these all 6s. Because then we should be able to fit a third one in there pretty easily. And then we'll go back to making that a 6. So you can kind of see how that works, and that takes care of that tip. So now that we have that in place, I'm going to go and reshuffle these outside stones so they're all spaced properly. So we're going to just come in here and we're going to make a selection of all of these outside stones. Now I've done this enough where I can usually get these outside stones picked up pretty good. So now they're all picked up. Well, there's one missing there. So I think that's all of them. So we'll go ahead and go to the editing tab and respace. And that spaces those all apart. So now they have a nice smooth spacing there. And we want to do the same thing on the other side. So we're just going to come in here. Let's go back. And let's just go down to this point here. We'll get 2 stones here that we don't need. And we'll respace. Now something happened there. Unexpected. So let's try that again. Sometimes that'll happen when you're making your selections. So don't be alarmed. We had something that was selected that it should not have been, apparently. Let's try it again. That took care of that. Okay, good. So now we have a nice even spacing along the outside border. So now it's just a matter of filling in the middle space here. So these 2 will be 6s. And we'll just keep going. We can respace those if we want to, or we could eyeball it either way. And you know, I've been doing this enough where sometimes I'll just eyeball it. And sometimes I'll use that respace tool just to make sure they're nice and even. But you can kind of see what we're doing. We're just kind of creating these lines of stones. And as we're going along and respacing, we'll add a stone. And then we'll delete stone paths. And then at some point when we get to a certain point in the design, again, we're going to have to make some choices as to if we're going to make certain stones smaller or whatever we're going to do there. Because at some point, like right here where we have all this confusion, these stones are pretty close together. So we've got some issues that we have to deal with right here to take care of this point in the design. So let's go ahead and I think we'll just go ahead and manually place a few stones here. We'll do another respace option. And then I need to fix this right here. These stones are too close together. So let's come in here. We'll select a bunch of these, go in this direction, and we'll respace them. And we'll hit the delete key. And you can see they have some collisions going on here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that down to a 6. I'm going to drop this one down to a 6. And then we're going to respace. And that will take care of those. Give us the spacing that we need. Take care of those. And we'll take care of those. So now you can see we have a couple of 6s in there now. But I think it handles the problem the easiest way. Alright, so then we can just kind of keep on going. I think what we'll do is we'll focus on one half of the design or the other. So I'm going to focus on the top half. And we'll drop another one in. And here we'll drop this down to a 6 and this down to a 6. We should be able to fit that in nicely. And now we can go back to our respace tool. Love that respace tool. Oh my goodness, it saves so much time. And like I said, when you come to these points, some decisions have to get made of how best to handle this. And generally speaking, just drop it down one stone size. That'll get the job done. Now here, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to select all of these stones going along this edge here. Respace. See how it shuffled all those? And I think that looks pretty good. So we'll delete that, and then we can just come back in and fix these. So there's a little bit, the spacing is a little bit off, so we'll delete that. That takes care of that spacing. Obviously, this stone, something has to give here. Let's make it a 6 and just try this. So we'll try selecting all of these along this path. And yeah, that actually worked out pretty good. So now here, we'll select these stones. We'll respace those. We'll try adding a stone. Yeah, actually that works out. So you can kind of see what we're doing here. Just taking it bit by bit. We're going to drop that one to a 6 because I don't think there's going to be room in there for a full stone. And delete. We'll pull this one in. Now when stones get close, I'll tell you what, let's go back to this side here. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a 6. And we're going to make this a 6. And then we're going to select these and use our respace tool. We're going to position these. Use our respace tool. We're going to add a stone there. And let's see here. What are we going to do? Let's drop this to a 6. Remember I said I like to do 6s in pairs. So if I can. So we'll respace those. And then we'll fix this line going this direction. So watch. We're going to select these stones. You see right here they're touching. And hit respace. And that takes care of those lines of stones. And then we're going to just reposition that. And we're going to do the same thing along here. Let's respace those. And then we have to decide what we're going to do here. So we're going to go ahead and select this row and respace that row. We're going to select this row and respace it. And I think we're going to leave that. This one, I'm going to drop a 6 in there. And we're going to respace that. And we'll select this row and respace. Now you see we have a collision here, but that's okay because, I say it's okay, we have this big gap up here that we need to address anyhow. So we'll hit respace going that other direction. And now that we've fixed that gap, we should be able to fix these pretty simply. So now we're just going to come in here, respace, delete the path, respace, delete the path, respace, delete the path, respace, delete the path. Now, like here again, you can see it's really tight right there. So again, we can go back in and respace it the other direction in certain areas where we need to. So now you can see that top part of the leaf is really, really nice. So we need to just kind of do the similar thing to the bottom part of our leaf. But there's a problem down here, so let's address this. Let's make those some 6s. And let's go ahead and make those 6s as well. And then we'll just pull those apart just enough to create some space there. We don't want to modify this too much, but I think what we'll do is we'll make those 6s as well and put a 3rd in there. And then we can come in here and just going to push these stones just a little bit. But then what we're going to do here is we're going to respace those stones. So let's just select all of those along that whole edge. Like so. I think that will get us. And then we'll respace it. Now it looks like there's a couple stones we missed, but we're just going to select that path again and hit respace again. And it'll pick up those stones that we missed and respace them along that path again. And I think that's fine. We're going to go ahead and just leave it that way. And then let's go ahead and fill this in here. So we're going to fill this in like so. And then what we're going to have to do is go ahead and we'll finish this point down here before we jump back up top here. So we're just going to put in a couple of 6s. I think I can fit a 10 in there. We're going to make this a 6. So let's do that. There's our pair. We're going to make this a 6. And then I think we can, nope, we're going to have to make one of those a 6. And then we can get back to fitting 2 wide. All right. So now that we have these 2 wide, let's go ahead and use the respace. It'll just shift those stones ever so slightly. Tell you what, I'm going to throw in a 6 there. See what it looks like. Respace. It's a little bit tight, but I'll live with it. I'd rather have a little bit tight than really, really loose. So let's go ahead and throw in another one. We'll get rid of that path. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these along the edge here. And we're going to select all of those and run a respace on those. That'll kind of spread all those out a little bit better like they should be. And same thing on the next row. Select all of these to that point and respace those. And respace those. Delete the path. See if we can squeeze that in there. I think we can. It's going to be tight, but good enough. And then here, I think what we'll do is we'll make both of those 6s, because we're getting to a point where it becomes tight again. So we'll go ahead and delete our path. And that's why we scrutinize over these fills. It's always the most challenging part because it does take a little bit of time to get it right. I've seen lots and lots of designs when it comes to the rhinestone fill portion that are just so-so. I mean, the time is not really being taken to get it right. Like we're scrutinizing these pretty good here to get it right. And you don't have to spend as much time, but then you also won't get as good a result either. So it's a bit of a give and take here. But if you like a really nice looking design with a little bit of work, we spent 30 minutes on this design. And of course, I also was explaining it along the way. But I'm happy to do a 30-minute design like that and have a great looking result. So let's go ahead and I guess the Y and the L are green technically in the original logo. But like I said, I'm happy to spend 30 minutes to create that design and have it look spot on as far as the fill goes. And anytime you have these odd shapes, the fill is going to take you a little bit of time to get it spot on right. But you can see it looks great. It's going to look great on the shirt. I'm super excited and happy about it. We'll hit Shift MU. We'll add our watermark, and we'll also add the dimensions of our design. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this video and understand a little bit more about the process and can appreciate the amount of time and effort we put into making a really high quality design so that you have a really nice finished product. So thanks for watching.